Call a public outreach meeting to order. And first item on the agenda is the minutes from our last meeting, which was in July.
To approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 2, project talking points.
Just
Rocky.
maybe a quick run through of these. These were sent out to the board. I don't think we sent them out to committees, and I should make a note to do that when we send it out to the board. So for those who aren't on the board, apologize about that overthought, I guess. This was sent out about 2 weeks ago. We did it sort of halfway through the month. The plan has been doing this every month. We had a request from the governor's office and the senator's office for an updated talking points on the project and what's changed, and so we did it for them for another purpose, and we decided to just not go through the same process a week or two later. But you can kind of see in here, this is the red line version to kind of show what's changed since last month, and we'll go through some of these obviously in more detail, but there's some permitting changes for the core in here. Contested case hearing, there was a sort of a mini hearing held. The financial overview is probably going to be a section that changes after committee and board meeting today and tomorrow. There's a financial presentation, so we've left that the same, but that'll probably be the one that changes the most. And then I'd say the other major change is that the MIC board, as we're calling it, the Moorhead and Clay County Joint Powers Authority formed and submitted a funding request to the DNR, which is a pretty major milestone as well. And then maybe just one, if you're keeping numbers in your head, the funding that Moorhead has received to date went up from $6 million to $7 million. They got an extra $1 million, so if you're keying those things in your head, that was a big one. Then, of course, the City of Horace agreement, we added that on here. I think that might be something that we could take off in future talking points. It seems like the deal was struck, and we haven't heard a lot about it since. I'm sure it'll come up again, but if it's not on the front of people's minds, we can highlight other things instead of that. But so we'll probably wait to update this until the next go around unless there's an interim need for some purpose.
So Rocky, excuse me, will you continue to provide them to like our city administrators? Because I got a comment back that she appreciated receiving it, so.
Yes, and I think we've added a couple people since then too. So yeah, we, Tina in West Fargo and Melissa, your communications person over there. So they both get it, and so trying to, it's a public document, and so we're fine sharing it. We've even talked about changing the name from Talking Points. Talking Points seems kind of spinning it, and it's not really meant to be that. It's more of a project update, but it's not quite that either, and so we're not sure what the right term is yet, but if anybody has any great ideas, we're happy to. We got some negative connotation with talking points these days, so. But.
Is there anybody else that we should be sending hard copies to? Is that committee members? Do you?
I think Joel mentioned sending it to the Minnesota or the local legislative delegation. I think that was a suggestion you made the other day.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Roger, I think we can probably get a master list put together and then continue to add to that as it makes sense. Everything in this talking point is public information. It's not you know, these are things that we just want people to know and understand, dispel some of the myths that are out there associated with some of these things, and really you know, give people the information so when people are asking them where are we at with certain items, they can know and disseminate that information and get that out there. But I think for sure legislative delegation, both North Dakota, South Dakota, you know, so as we start to compile those and get them to people and get feedback from them on how they like them and just continue. It's going to be a great tool to be able to keep people up to date on what's going on.
And then I think we really should rethink how it's labeled talking points. I don't think that's quite the message we want to put out there. You know, when I think of that, it's almost for us to defend the project, almost talking and how we're going to talk about it. But it is more informational, and I think maybe we can work on that. I don't know if you're looking for suggestions, or if you want to maybe executive director have some ideas on that and back to us next meeting, or what do you?
I'll do that, Roger. I think we'll come back with some different options for some different names. And I think the root of the talking points really came from this document originally being intended for board members and getting the information out about certain things that are taking place. But you're right, when we're reaching a broader audience with this, we should have a different name.
Yeah.
I think that message almost seems like it can give the perception we're being told what we have to say.
Right.
And you know, we don't need that.
No.
Yeah.
You know, it's more of, here's where the current issues are, here's what we're doing, you know, but it's got nothing to do with talking points. I understand what the intent was from internally.
Yep.
But, you know, you could probably go on to any political show and you hear talking points from one side or another, and that's not what we're trying to do here.
Absolutely.
I would say these are more like status updates.
Right. Yep, that's right.
I apologize for being late, everyone.
We had just started, Shelley, so.
I got caught on a phone call with my other job, so.
How about the true facts? All right. Any other questions or on the talking points? If not, we'll go on to the Clomer outreach.
So the Clomer is the conditional letter of map revision that we've submitted to FEMA. If you recall, we did this 2 years ago and went through a map revision process with FEMA and got approval. That was right before the injunction came down, and we had a number of outreach things planned during that time, and so we've sort of revitalized those, and as we're going through the process now, we're starting those things over again. One of the first ones is to send out concurrence letters to the entities and made up in the reach of FEMA, which includes 31 different political jurisdictions, which is always kind of interesting. We're talking about when we say this is a metro area project, we're talking about 31 different government entities, and so it's a good thing to keep in mind. But Joel sent this attached letter in here. I think the important thing is this was a FEMA requirement to send the letter. The one additional thing we added in here is sort of the request for Joel to come out and meet with their entity. And the spreadsheet right after that is who we sent them to, the 31 entities, and you can see we've heard from 5 of them, 3 that we have presentations set up, and 2 more that we're working on setting presentations up. There'll be somewhat of a consistent presentation, with some localized information depending on the entity. But we're hoping to get out to more. If anything, it's an opportunity that, we tried to reach out. I think some of these we don't hear from usually, but every once in a while we get a new one, and that's always great.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I viewed this as an opportunity for myself to kind of come and start a relationship with these different entities. This new executive director role is kind of a new start as far as communication goes with these entities. Some of these you'll see already, I think are going to be extremely important for myself to be there, explain the Clomar process, explain what needs to be done, why I'm here, but also just make myself available to just meet a lot of these folks and talk with the decision makers, with the different political entities that are affected by the project. So.
Roger.
Yes.
I also think it's people should know too that because these were sent out, a response isn't always received either way regarding it. Sometimes entities just will not respond either for or against something. And they just, so when you see a lot of concurrence received, you just might not receive anything from them. But that doesn't mean for or against, so.
That's right. And we're not, they're not required to send anything in. We are required to reach out to them, which is being done here. But I think I would like to go above and beyond and try to really reach out as much as possible. And like you say, Kevin, if the political entity just can't meet or they're not interested, at least we've tried our best to reach out on this specific item. I have a feeling that a lot of these meetings will address items outside the Clomar process, which is perfectly fine, and willing to make myself available to have those discussions as well. So.
You know, the Clomer is, just so everybody realizes, a pretty major milestone, and it really does two primary things. You know, we talk a lot about flood insurance and what the future maps will do to the flood insurance regulatory requirements in both on Fargo-Moorhead side of things. And the Clomer is the best assurance we can get from FEMA that if you build the project as you say you're going to, it'll do what you're intending. It's not a guarantee, they make that very clear, it's what the C is, right? The conditional nature of it, but it's the best assurance we can give to people that the project will have the intended effect. It also allows us upstream to define the mitigation requirements. It helps us to say, you know, FEMA signs off on the hydraulic model, which is very important. They may do make some changes, we'll have some small tweaks to it, but that's a major sort of federal checkbox that, okay, now we know what the mitigation requirements are from the FEMA side of things. And so it's a big deal. I did pull up the website, it's just fmdiversion.gov, which we changed to the .gov. .com still works, but it's .gov now /Clomer. And we have a 1-minute video on there that we made 2 years ago on what is a Clomer, and a number of other sort of FAQ type things that we can drop people to. You can watch the 1-minute video if there's interest in what is a Clomer, but we don't have to.
Mike?
Just for clarity again, concurrence, is it required from all these entities or not? They're not, because I would guess some of them won't do it, or like Kevin said, they won't get around to it or whatever.
That's right. Concurrence is not required from each of the entities. We are required to notify them of the potential for their flood insurance maps to change and give them the information of what those will look like once the project's completed and FEMA's accepted the new flood insurance rate maps. I would hope during my outreach to these entities that we can compile their concerns, you know, what the issues will be before and after. If an entity does not agree with the future flood insurance rate maps, they do have a process through FEMA to be able to try to prove them wrong, prove our hydraulic models wrong, which would be a difficult and expensive endeavor for those political entities, but the process is set in their procedures to be able to do that. But they're not concurring with the Clomar does nothing to negate our process of initiating the changes in the flood insurance rate maps.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
Can I ask one question? What does the certified letter notification mean? Some of them are yes, some of them have nothing by them.
So we're required to send this certified mail so that we can prove that we sent the letter out. The ones that say that we've received them, notification back that they received the letter is a yes, and the ones that we don't have filled in, we haven't received notification yet that they received them.
Okay.
And some of that might just be the letter might be sitting at the post office box waiting for somebody to come and pick it up, and it just hasn't occurred yet.
Okay. I just wanted clarification if there was just ones that you had to do a certified letter and others you didn't, so thank you.
We're not worried yet at this time about any. A lot of them are, you see, our townships or the smaller cities that maybe don't check the mail every day type thing.
So it's a return receipt requested.
That's correct.
Okay.
You know, one thing we've talked about in the past too is what cities should we do outreach to and which ones we shouldn't. It's a sort of an interesting guide that this is what FEMA's requires, you know, the list of cities. You'll see some on there that we've talked to over time. I think we've talked to Kindred at a time, and Mapleton and Argosville. I guess Argosville's on here. But, you know, a couple of those ones that are maybe, you know, Dilworth that aren't on here that we do reach out to it from time to time, but it's a good, Georgetown's another one. You know, those are ones we need to keep on our mind too, because they're maybe outside the project area, but they're still pretty interested, or maybe they think they're impacted or affected. And so always keep that in mind too, that this isn't totally exhaustive of where we're working.
And yeah, to Rocky's point there, you know, moving into the future, I had wanted to do this anyways, regardless of the Clomar issue. Reach out to all of the affected jurisdictions so that I could introduce myself. But I also want this to be an ongoing thing. And, you know, it's similar to maybe having MetroCog come to your commission and just explain, you know, the projects that they've tackled over the course of the year. doing something similar, doing an annual review with each one of these entities in the future about where we're at, what's happening, what are the future tasks coming up, just to keep everybody informed. And really trying to be proactive in getting the messages out about the diversion project and dispelling many of those rumors that are currently out there.
Thank you. Next item is animated flyover.
So Tammy's been cranking away on to get you a good draft of this. We did make some last minute edits, so we're still calling this draft as we kind of clear our eyes and get to watch it again. But this is something that was really the most popular thing we had ever done, I think, as an outreach program, probably 5 years ago maybe. Got several thousand views on YouTube, and I think it's still the best educational thing we have of the full comprehensive project. We tried to get this down, and you can see it's 3 minutes and 4 seconds into a consumable video that people will watch, and we're trying to think of some creative ideas on how to get it out to people. But anyways, we can hit play. It's just an animated flyover.
The FM Area Diversion Project is a combination of features that work together to provide flood protection for Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo, Horace, Harwood, and other communities near the metro region. The southernmost part of the project is the southern embankment. This is a dry dam embankment that runs from east to west from Minnesota into North Dakota. As extreme flood events happen, this dry dam will protect the metro area from devastating floodwaters and hold those waters south of the metropolitan area until the peak of the flood has passed the metro area. Flowage easements will be purchased for properties south of the embankment that will be impacted by floodwaters during extreme flooding events. The first structure along the route is the Red River Control Structure. The gates on this structure can be set during flooding events to allow a safe amount of water through town. The Corps is leading the work on the southern embankment and associated structures. The dry dam meets the control structure on the Wild Rice River just west of I-29. The control structures will normally open to allow rivers to flow. Interstate 29 and county highways will go over the southern embankment. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers hired a contractor to begin building the diversion inlet control structure in 2017. During extreme flood events, waters will move west toward the diversion inlet control structure at the southern opening of the diversion channel. A small embankment to the west of the diversion inlet control structure helps contain water during flood events up to the probable maximum flood. As waters from extreme flood events enter the diversion channel, they move safely around the metro area. The diversion channel crosses multiple rivers, including the Shine River and the Maple River. Both of these rivers will cross the channel using an aqueduct structure. The structure also allows excess floodwaters from the west to enter the diversion channel and flow north around the metropolitan area. There are more than 20 crossings of the diversion channel. Multiple smaller drains enter the diversion channel along the way. The channel will be designed as a natural or non-concrete channel designed to handle 20,000 cubic feet of water a second at the diversion inlet control structure and the additional waters from the rivers and drains that enter it. Diversion channel and structures are being built through a public-private partnership. The channel continues north and takes water from the Rush River and the lower Rush River. This water is safely moved toward the Red River. The channel meets the river near Georgetown, Minnesota, and water continues to flow north, eventually toward Lake Winnipeg. Diversion channels are used by other communities, including those in the Red River Valley, to protect them from catastrophic flooding. The City of Winnipeg uses multiple diversion channels to protect residents from flooding. For more information about the FM Area Diversion Project, visit fmdiversion.gov.
So does the picture represent the footprint of the water or of the whole diversion?
I believe neither of those exactly. I believe it's the land that we're acquiring, and so the actual channel of it will be a fraction of that. But that's the permanent acquisition that we're doing, and so as we get better design, we can modify this over time. But yeah, so it's the maximum area. Big. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about the people that live along there, back to the ones who are not buying out, and how accurate is it? you know, so that then when they look at it, they get an idea.
Rocky, I wonder, oh, I'm sorry, Roger. I'm wondering if, in that portion, when it gets to discussing and explaining the diversion channel itself, if maybe there could just be something in there that states what is the width of it, you know, and the depth of it, you know, that might help just to give an idea of, you know.
We could easily put that in this box here along.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
idea,
there you go, yeah.
and the idea with the boxes too is that this could be played with or without sound, because a lot of times when you're viewing on a mobile device, you don't always have sound on, so.
We also use it at conferences. This is a great booth, you know, we sort of exhibit, you put a TV up and someone's there or not, at least you always have something going. And find at conferences, not everybody likes to engage, but if you have something interesting in your booth, they'll sit and watch.
I think most people won't understand what 20,000 cubic feet means when it comes to a flood.
Yep.
Or quantity of water.
No, it's a good suggestion. And we could probably talk about the right way to show the channel width too.
Rocky, might I suggest, we could maybe, you know, to Kevin's point, some of those abstract numbers, maybe as the discussion is taking place, 20,000 cubic feet per second equals, you know, 1,200 Olympic-sized swimming pools.
Yeah.
You know, per second or whatever. You know, something like that could just show up in the corner or something along.
You know, when we were talking about flood fighting in Oakport, and I think the numbers were talked about 26,000 cubic feet, and that's per second. And I kind of described it in a way, can you imagine 26,000 basketballs in their boxes that you might buy at a hardware store, flowing every second?
Yeah.
26,000 of them.
Near a floodplain.
Yeah, that's a good description, Kevin, and it's pretty truthful. Another suggestion, Rocky, perhaps we could show an actual 3D rendering. I'm sure that was discussed, and I don't know if there's difficulties there, but I know there's programs that allow us to quickly put 3D renderings together. Might be something we could look at and see what that would really, I think, be able to let people visualize you know, what it's actually going to look like.
Yeah, I think Tammy and I would agree with that. We've tried some things in the past, and a lot of it is based on, you know, we don't have design for a lot of that yet, and so we don't want to put something out there that presupposes something either. So I think as the project, we're getting into that phase though, we're pretty close to be able to doing that pretty accurately. So.
Sure.
And I have another comment. It said that water on the outside could flow in, you know, through drainage areas. I think, you know, what we look at now is the Cheyenne diversion that's perched, holds water. I think a lot of farmers are thinking the water is just going to be held against this embankment. I think maybe a comment that the elevation or the height of the water in the diversion channel will allow water to drain into it. You know, the height is low enough that it would allow it to go in.
Absolutely, yeah. I think a way, you know, a way to talk about that is that it actually will improve some drainage for some of those properties.
Yeah, and we're not supposed to really taunt that as a benefit, but we know anything less than 100-year is gonna most likely improve the drainage out there.
You know, if you were to take that blue width there, and if you were to take a third of it on each side and make it green and leave that center section blue, you'd come a lot closer than you are now, you know, what it's going to actually look like.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the acquisition, the lands team is having those conversations right now too, to see what flexibility there is. When you fly over this, you can see that there's some properties that are fairly close to the outside of that blue width, and is there options there or not, and so. And of course, we need to talk to the P3 team, because anytime we show the channel right now is a sensitive thing, and so we need to make sure we're not running at odds. But these are all good changes, and we can incorporate as many as possible right now.
And part of the reason it's taken us 4 years to get a new one of these is because every time we get one ready to go, then somebody says, oh, the map changed, like, let's do it again.
We
So,
had a
yeah.
flyover some years ago that actually showed the channel as you flew over, didn't it?
Yeah, there was like a 3D.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was probably 4 or 5 years ago.
That, you're referring to this one, I think.
Upstream and also nearly eliminated downstream.
Is this the video that you're thinking of?
Now, that's,
The voiceover sounded pretty good in this one.
it shows the bottom of the channel there is really narrow.
Yeah, so this uses the indicative design, the line work, and you can see at the structures and at the road crossings, it's pretty interesting. I think that gets maybe more to Joel's original point too, is at least it shows a little more detail.
Well, I'll look into the legal ramifications of being able to show a 3D model. You know, obviously we have to be cognizant of the amount of information that we release publicly about the P3 portion of the project. But I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be able to show a concept design and indicate that somehow in the video, so.
You know, I saw Clay County has a Facebook page. I think Commissioner Mojo shared it the other day and asking people to like it. And I know the mayors of Moorhead have always been great on Facebook. Fargo's done a lot for this diversion authority on their Facebook page. They share all these videos, for instance. It'd be nice once we get a final version if we could ask everybody to use their resources on Facebook to get it out there. You're gonna get some comments, but I think it's good information.
Construction flyover.
Yeah, we just did one this morning. So it's pretty fresh.
We've been waiting to do this for several weeks, but because of the rain, it's been somewhat delayed. But dirt's, you can see, it's there's no audio or anything, so I'm just going to talk over it, I guess. But you can see this is the inlet structure. You can see the dirt movers are out there and moving. So we're looking west right now, is that right?
Northwest, yeah. I haven't uploaded this to our YouTube channel yet, but I will as soon as I get done with the minutes.
I want to compliment the county on getting that road paved. The bypass, that really took care of a lot of problems out there.
Then at some point, that animated flyover can become a real flyover too, which would be pretty neat. Yeah. Anybody wants to know the scale of that channel, just look at that excavator in there. So that would be the channel that runs through, and those two sort of hills on either side are where the gate structure, my understanding is the cement structure will be.
So do they continue to pump water out of the holding pond there? They must, because it didn't seem like it accumulated after the rains that we had.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a big slip and slide right now, probably.
They do? Yeah.
But, you know, these visuals are so valuable for sort of public perception on what's happening. You know, I think Commissioner Sherling's letter to the editor the other day about getting asked, has construction started, or what's going on. This is the type of thing that news media is like. They show it as B-roll in the background, and they have stories, and just, you know, every one of these can be a visual picture that we use on Twitter or anywhere else. Presentations.
Loading it with a backhoe.
So I don't know how complicated this would be, but on these, I think it would be helpful to have like the arrow that says holding pond, the arrow that says cement structure, or whatever.
Yeah, I think.
Help better visualize what all this is that we're looking at.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, and really just the timing of it. Tammy flew this 2 hours ago, 3 hours ago.
And the last one that we did, we added in directional signage so you could see which direction you were looking at, and markers too, so I can do that.
I wonder if it would be possible to, say, like in the lower left or upper one of the corners, to superimpose what the finished product would look like, so they can kind of see that in comparison to that. You know, that might be worth trying.
know if you remember, but 3 years ago at the groundbreaking of this project, we had the Google glasses and we loaded in the actual design and you could look and see it completed. It was pretty neat. We haven't done that since. It was sort of an experimental thing, but something like that would be neat. If the chair would like us to show this tomorrow, we absolutely will.
Yeah, I think maybe for tomorrow, the second one, I don't know that we need to show. Not the first one. Yeah. Yeah, so why don't we plan that for tomorrow?
And we can cut like a minute of it.
Yeah.
This sort of repeats a little bit, so we can.
And I'll
I think the message that we've wanted with this flyover is to show that there's work being done.
Yep. Right.
You know, that's the critical component of it right now, so.
And I can drop in the markers like this that show direction.
Kind of be cool over time here to have the side-by-side videos and you can see the before and after, the progress shots and that sort of thing. But there's one question that we have maybe later in this. We have a fourth quarter plan, and I know working with Joel on a longer term vision sort of planning document, how often is the right frequency to see updates? I think everyone's curious and not everyone drives out there very often, and so, you know, obviously when something significant happens, but dirt's always moving now, so. Every month, do you want to see an update, you know, every quarter?
I think when you can, after a while, you see a clear difference. You know, there's a major construction project going on in downtown Fargo right now, and you can look at it, you know, in over a 30-day period of time, and it might not look like anything's happened, but a lot has. But then if you haven't been by there, you know, for a period of time, you just see, boom, how much has been done, and
So once a month?
yeah, I don't think it needs to be any more than that.
And that's just, you know, through the summer months, obviously. But, you know, it's not, you know, Tammy does a good job at this. It's not a lot of effort to go out and fly. This once you know what you're doing and you have a nice day, of course. Finding a nice day lately has been the biggest challenge, I think. But we can work with Joel on the appropriate.
Okay, we got fmdiversion.com and traffic.
Apologize, I guess, you know, this has been a standard item on here. We should change it to .gov, so it's my fault on not catching that.
So that's the one thing I was gonna note is that our address is changed. And then I wasn't sure if everyone on the committee gets the newsletter or not, or has the chance to open it. So I wanted to show you what our newsletter usually looks like. Typically, the newsletter includes information that we've posted on the website already that's been, you know, reviewed and approved from folks, and it's kind of some of the most important news stories that we have going on. And it drives, we always see an increase in traffic on the website when we send the newsletter out, which means that it's a valuable tool for people to get to the website. So, and then just, it's helpful when there's good news about the project, because that makes our Twitter presence a lot stronger, and we just have a lot more things to talk about on social media. So yeah, and we condensed the analytics report down to about 3 pages now instead of 5, in order to save a little bit of paper, maybe make it less confusing, I think. So if you have questions about that, feel free.
Any questions? All right, let's go on to Jason Benson and the Diversion Minute.
So just these are not videos that we've shown before in this style, and what we found is that with a lot of the 3 questions videos where we really have strong personal stories about the project, but we were missing some of those technical expertise voices, and so we kind of came up with this different format a little bit for some of our technical voices on the project.
You know, just this spring, which didn't have a significant flood on the Red River, for parts of rural Cass County with the tributaries had significant flooding. Over 80% of all of our county sandbagging and efforts went to rural areas within the diversion protected area. All of those areas will be protected with the diversion. This is the best solution for not only our urban areas and urban residents in Fargo and West Fargo, but also for the rural residents. This is going to be a game changer for them in the reduction in impacts during these spring floods on their access to homes. This is Cass County's permanent flood protection plan.
So, and each of these is just a minute long, so if it's okay, I'll show the other one too, that talks about roads.
We had several hundred miles of county roads that had some impact, whether a culvert washing out or water over top of the road and washing some of the gravel off, and then others where we had to bring in a lot of additional material, reset culverts, and get the road reshaped before we could allow traffic on it. Financially, to the townships, you're adding that much more because they've gone through a winter where they're having to spend so much extra money on plowing the snow, and now they're having to spend that additional money to get their roads repaired. Now the tributary rivers, both the Cheyenne, the Maple, as well as the Rush and Lower Rush, dump their additional floodwaters into the diversion, and only a certain amount of flow will be allowed into the protected area.
Well, if you recall, when we really started videos, it was probably about 2 years ago when we were hearing a lot from the public, and I think the board was hearing that, who is the diversion authority? And it was starting to get a sort of a negative reputation as sort of an unelected board. Who are these guys? You know, it's sort of indescript. It was new to the public. And so we were trying to add faces to the diversion authority. And I think these have really helped. I think people recognize him. I know a lot of people know Jason around the county. And so when they see his face, it's like, oh, okay, start to build the trust back and that sort of thing. We think it's helped, so.
Thank you. Fourth quarter outreach calendar.
This is the kind of accordion style folder in here. This is a process that was in our communications plan as we're entering our fourth quarter here to talk about what's coming up. You can see the calendar on the left side of major items we know are going to happen, and then sort of on the right there's routine activities on the top, and then maybe some long-term goals and objectives that we'd like to get out of this. Thought it would be good to bring it to this committee, maybe even for a vote, an endorsement of the work. Obviously Joel's the CEO of our organization here, but this is our plan on what we're planning to do. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary as far as the routine activities or the upcoming events. You can see a couple things. We have a couple conferences. There's the right-of-way conference that a couple Diversion Authority representatives are speaking at. And there's the water convention again in December that we usually speak at. We have a presentation slot. I assume, Roger, you'll have another opportunity there at the joint board as well to speak. And then you can see a couple of the items on the legend. We have a number of bio-geo meetings. Those are sort of the neighborhood meetings that have been taking place later on the agenda in here. There's kind of smaller group public meetings. The new major general, the commanding general of the Corps division that we're in is coming later in October. So just a couple of things, and then we've listed the bid openings on there. We are gonna change the numbers on there, the 43G and 43D5, because if anybody can tell me what those are, I'll be very impressed. And so we'll try to come up with some good naming conventions for those. I know the engineers have their naming format, but try to agree on something. As far as routine activities, you can see newsletter, talking points, things we always talk about. North Dakota Water Magazine. If you don't get the Water Magazine, it is a good magazine. We've had a article in that for at least a couple years. I think Carol Lewis of the joint board suggested that a couple years ago, and we've stuck to that. Presentations coming up. We are in land outreach. In addition to the Clomer and the bio-geo meetings, we are working on a letter to go out probably this week from either Joel or Commissioner Sherling as chair to the upstream landowners. We'd really hoped that in addition to the Clomer, we'd have an individual property owner outreach that was maybe more significant than this one will be. But given that we're a couple months out from the Clomer being approved and some determinations being made from the states on mitigation requirements, we want to reach out to them and let them know where we're at. We had told them that we'd probably reach out in summer with the Clomer, and so we're kind of pushing that boundary now. And so let's reach out and get that done. So we may hear some, well, you didn't tell me anything new, but I think it's important to make that touch point and do it on a regular basis.
Roger? Do you, because these are communication action plans, do you think that the MCC JPA should be shown on here, or when their meetings are, because they're obviously public meetings, and it seems to me that people should be able to look to this and see when those are as well.
Yeah, and for that matter, the joint board too. So this is the third time we've had that same discussion. I think every time we come up with a different answer. So if the committee wants us to put them on there, we'll put them on there. It could go either way. We'd probably have to list them both. I think the consensus was, they're not necessarily diversion authority led meetings, so they wouldn't go on here. But all the reasons you said are great reasons to have them on here. So if that's the consensus.
Well, I think the MCC JPA should be on there.
You can see our last newsletter highlighted it, so obviously we feel that it's valuable. So it's a good picture in the last newsletter.
Jake? Cass County Joint on here?
I think it should be on there.
Yeah.
I don't know how often you guys meet.
Twice a month.
Yeah, and see, so we meet once a month, and so I just think it would be good to have it on there.
Okay.
And our board is that board is strictly related to diversion topics. Cass County Joint Water Resource District, you do an awful lot of other things.
Well, we're buying land right now.
Yeah, but you do other things that aren't diversion related.
Right.
And the MCC JPA is 100% related to the diversion project. So I don't, so I can't speak for if Cass County wants theirs on there, but.
Roger, if I may.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea, Kevin. The more I look into this, the lands discussion is dovetailed into the communication plan. And we need to somewhat work between committees to address some of the issues that are prevalent out there. So in my mind, the Minnesota meeting and the Cass County meetings, both of those are conduits for us to communicate with people and invite people in to discuss issues that are happening. And I think it's a great idea to add this on.
I think it's part of our transparency.
Right.
I'll say we'll make sure that I have that changed. I want to call attention to two long-term objectives on here. One is a communications plan. We had a version in 2013. We had a version in 2016. There's no reason to do one every 3 years, but that has sort of been the norm. But I look at it as more, are we entering a new phase of the project? We obviously have Joel on board now. And so to get I think it's our recommendation is to have a sort of a consensus goals and objectives type planning process would be really helpful. That would be inclusive of this committee so that, Joel has clear direction, we have clear direction, and sort of something to measure our efforts by would be really helpful. And so I put that ball in Joel's court, of course, and so he's got a couple of balls.
Yeah, so I've had a few meetings just internally about this item. I'd like to work with this committee on updating the communications plan. I think it's outdated. It's 3 years old. There's a lot that's changed in the last 3 years. I want to bring some thoughts forward to this committee that could be incorporated into that plan for being more proactive in our communications, and kind of go over some different things that I think we could tweak a little bit, do a little bit differently that would be impactful for the project. So that will be worked on. I'll present something to this committee, and perhaps we can do a brainstorming session as we start to develop what that update or that plan is going to look like. But something that'll happen this next quarter here.
All right, next item. Previous outreach presentations, just talk about those.
Yeah, I think you can tell me if you don't want these on here, but I always think it's important to let you all know where we're either planning to speak, which is in our plan, or where we've spoken since we last met. And I'm probably missing some that, we have a lot of speakers at times that have different groups and things, but these were 4 recent ones. The Red River Basin Commission ex officio meeting, Joel presented with Martin Nicholson and John Shockley. That was a good one. Red River Watershed Management Board, I was up there in Ada. This is a group I don't think we've ever presented to before. And so it was nice to get the offer from them. It's not something we reached out to necessarily and spoke to them. It was surprising. It was very good questions, all pretty positive questions. And so it was good. They also meet for a long time, just like our friends in the Cass County Joint Water Resource District. And so it was a long meeting, but it was a good opportunity to get up there and speak to a new audience. Valley Prosperity Partnership, this is a group that is jointly between Grand Forks and Fargo, if you're not aware of the group. They've been very supportive at a legislative level for us. Robert Wilson spoke to them and a group of legislators that was attending there. I thought that was a good meeting. And then talked a little bit about these bio and geo meetings. I think they got a couple different names, but just if you're wondering what that is, there's a 1-page, what is a bio-geo monitoring. But you can see these are a big part of the next 3 months on the outreach plan. They're we calling them neighborhood meetings at some level. Usually a couple dozen property owners are invited in that area where they're trying to get these easements. The last meeting was in Christine, down in Richland County. I think there was about 24 property owners that have been sent letters. They come in thinking they're all over the spectrum on different thoughts and perceptions, and so it's a good opportunity to field the questions and get them answered. When sometimes you send somebody a letter, you either won't get a response, or if you're going to get a negative response, they may rip up the letter and not even read it. And so it's a good opportunity to answer people's questions. I think give them, if you just send them a letter, just like the Clomer one, if you just send them a letter and don't give them an outlet to respond, more negativity happens. And so I think these are great. I know the Joint Forks is the one hosting them, so you guys have thoughts. I know you're talking about them on your meeting tomorrow too. But anything we could do to avoid going to a lawsuit over getting a easement from somebody to measure something on their shore is good.
So they understand what the easement is and what it's for and its limitations. That's important for a landowner, to know what the limitations are to what he's signing, to make sure he can understand it and know that it isn't signing away his rights for other things. Other business.
Just a question I know we've talked about this before. Have we given any further consideration to publishing some type of periodic article in the Forum? I mean, the city of Fargo had a road construction, they had one in every week. What's going on? I mean, right now, we don't need one every week, I get it. But, when I look at the viewership, there's a lot of people who don't access YouTube, a lot of people who don't access the computer, they just don't access it. There's a lot of people who access the Forum who we don't even, we don't seem to reach out to. If you're not on the computer, you're not gonna see it. I would really feel we should do something on a periodic basis. And I don't know how you go through that, what that process is, but to get the Forum to run something on updates for the diversion. We talked about this talking points, maybe not the right term, but it's the information that you don't have to put everything out at one time, but it'd be nice for people to understand where we at, because I get so many questions from people who I think should know what's going on. Well, what's going on with the diversion? Are we building it? Is it? People have no idea. I mean, I won't say all people, but a lot of people don't have a clue, and I don't know why we don't feel we should put something in the Forum on a periodic basis. If it's now because not much is going on, if it's quarterly, that's fine, but I'm thinking down the road, when we're shutting down roads, we're doing crosses, and we should have something there very often to say, hey, this is gonna be shut down. Not rely on the Forum to come report on the meeting, but something we put in there with good information that's factual and people can rely on. I don't know when the right start time is, but we're moving into a position now where we're talking about getting out for bids. We've got funding issues going on right now. It just seems that to put people at ease, more people are trying to do now, it'd be nice to put something in the Forum, but I know it's not modern, it's not up to date, but it's, not high-techy, but a lot of people read the forum. Thought.
Good thought.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Steen. I think that's a great thought. I've also been thinking of something similar, doing something similar to that. But I would like to, I guess, discuss
Run
it
it
here
by
at
your
this
committee.
committee level and
Yep.
even at the board level. I mean, I would be open to personally writing, a letter once a month in the form, explaining certain aspects of what's going on with the project, why certain things are happening, all the way down to, just federal requirements for floodplain, because I think those are just misunderstood in our community. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I talk to people all the time that think there's going to be a current or an existing pool of water permanently upstream. And so when people are asking me questions about that, it's obvious that, we're missing something on our communication, right?
And I wouldn't any local paper is interested in running it, I think it'd be great. That reached out to the region, not just the forum, but we've got other papers in the area that would probably take a piece and they would consider running just for information purposes.
And that was my thought, is it wouldn't just be the forum. I mean, we can reach out to FM Extra, to the Daily News, up to Grand Forks as well. But really starting to get a piece that's being run on a consistent basis, providing accurate information about what's going on. And so I've kind of struggled myself, what's the best way to do that? I really probably need some help from this committee and the board to determine what everyone would like to see. I mean, is this communication coming from the board, or is this communication coming from the executive director? And how often do we want to do it? What sort of things do we want to focus on? Those sorts of ideas. But I really like the idea. I think it's an excellent idea, and I think it's a great conduit. And even though people might think of newspapers as maybe not, being a little bit old-fashioned as far as communication, I know the forum has been extremely proactive of putting their articles out into digital media and on Facebook, on the internet. And so you really are, even though it's a traditional newspaper, it's really a conduit that kind of bridges that gap, so.
Well, also, the forum hasn't put themselves in a box where they're just only accepting the diversion news. They also support, or by putting letters to the editor from the opposition. So, they probably would look credible by continuing to put the opposition in along with whatever we can add in there. I think Commissioner Steen hit it right on the nose. We can't get enough information out there. It's obvious that,
And it's obvious that, the letter writer that's most prominent, of course, is Rodney. And he's in there an awful lot. And he's perceived by a lot of readers as an authority. And, if you were to look at what appears in the forum, the disinformation far outweighs the accurate information that's been provided, I think. And I made a presentation to SBA, and I was amazed. I had to start from the beginning. I had to actually show the justification for the diversion and what are the benefits and how the benefits outweigh the cost before I could even get into starting to talk about what's happening today. So, and these people, SCORE is a volunteer entity at SBA, and these are prominent businessmen who have been in business in the Fargo-Moorhead for many years. They didn't know what's going on. And they look at Rodney as being a credible source of information. And nobody's taken him on, I don't think.
I agree, including us. And I know, Joel, you want to work with us, but unless you get some direction from this committee, you don't know where to go. You know, and I don't know, you know, if appropriate direction would be, you know, go back and work with whoever you work with and see what you can come back with to this group. You know, but someone's gotta tell you to get this done, right? So, you know, I don't know if it's consensus, but it sure seemed like it would make a lot of sense to me to go ahead and work with some people, Rocky and his group and whoever and the media group, and find out what we can get accomplished and get it on the, you know, get it going sooner than later. That'd be my recommendation, but that's not a motion, it was just a consensus item, and I don't see anybody disagreeing. Nope. At this table.
I'll add some things. This is a hat I wear in my life. When people climb in bed with one member of the media, they often shoot themselves in the foot from the sense of equal opportunity of information sharing to anybody. So yes, there's a daily newspaper, but there's 20-some radio stations. There's some real active daily talk shows. You don't leave anybody out, is what I'm saying. You offer everybody access to you and to your spokesmanship and to your information, and you do that proactively.
I agree.
In my head. So like you go to the Forum Editorial Board, you do that at KFGO, and you do that at the AM 1100, and you do that at all the media, and you develop relationships with them, you know, but you will shoot yourselves in the foot if you just do it with one media.